Vocal Pod.
Welcome back into the Chris Mathis podcast. Chris Mathis, Spencer Mathis, glad that you guys have joined us once again after having a week hiatus due to Spence went on a road trip with his girlfriend to Texas, Louisiana, even somehow trickled his way down to Florida. I think I'm missing somewhere else. Alabama.
Yep. Mississippi.
I don't know. Mississippi too. So
that's it.
Yeah, so he went all over, and we took a pod off last week, obviously coming off of what was a very big show, and we appreciate you guys for joining us here on TCM_pod. But first and foremost, a big conversation we talked about a few weeks ago was Jonathan Taylor, the Colts running back, holding out, not showing up, and what the Colts would do, what he would do regarding his future, not only with the Colts, but in the NFL as well. And Jonathan Taylor officially signed a new deal, an extension with the Indianapolis Colts, a 3-year, $42 million deal, which obviously is a step forward for NFL running backs in terms of contract and money and what they're searching for. Just a few months ago when they had that committee online, Derrick Henry a part of that, Austin Eckler a part of that, so many different backs across the National Football League were a part of that conversation. And, obviously when you look at the contract, 3 years, $42 million, he's getting top back money, which he is a top back. However, just for me, this is a weird situation considering what Jim Irsay had said about the tailback, and then Jonathan Taylor not too sure what he wanted to do with his future. And then some way, somehow, they prove us wrong and they mend their relationship, and here they are. They ink a new contract.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor must have known that Jim Irsay wasn't going to let up his rights by trading them away or releasing him. So ended up re-signing Jonathan Taylor, which is a bad decision for the Indianapolis Colts, because if you look at the statistics of Zach Moss, through the first 4 games of the season, last week was week 5, but through the first 4 games of the season, he had around 300 rushing yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Last week, he goes off for 165 rushing yards, a couple of touchdowns. He's having a really good season. He's averaging 5 yards per carry. So for Jim Irsay to go out there and the general manager for the Indianapolis Colts to go out there and think, hey, maybe we need a different running back than the guy who's producing just as well as Jonathan Taylor would produce, and being paid much less than what Jonathan Taylor's being paid. Jonathan Taylor's getting paid a ton of money, and in his first game back, he was obviously the backup to Zach Moss, and Zach Moss is the one that carried them to the victory over the Tennessee Titans. So I don't know why they decided to do that with Jonathan Taylor to give him such a big contract, but I mean, obviously for Jonathan Taylor, he must have known that if he waits one more year, he's not getting that big of a contract, and Jim Irsay is probably not going to release him in the first place. So in my opinion, a bad decision for the Colts ownership, but for Jonathan Taylor, I guess it's the right thing for him, because what does he only have to play 13 games or 12 games this season, and then he's getting paid one of the most amount of monies of any running back in the NFL, and for a guy who missed all of last season, missed the first 4 games of this season, and obviously doesn't matter too much to the Indianapolis Colts because Zach Moss, a guy who was released by the Buffalo Bills just last season, didn't even get a second deal on his rookie contract, is going off in Indianapolis. So just a weird decision for the Colts. Really do think that for Jonathan Taylor's sake as well, like you said, the relationship between him and Irsay didn't look like it was any good. So just a weird decision for both of these teams. And honestly, on the part of the Indianapolis Colts, I think it's a bigger blunder for them.
Yeah, again, it's just a weird situation to see unfold there for the Colts. And yeah, why would they pay Jonathan Taylor that amount of money when they have a guy in Zach Moss who's still on his rookie deal, averaging 5 yards a carry? He's got 445 yards so far this season for the Colts. He's young. He's 25 years old. Obviously, he's about to probably get paid as well. Now, it'd be a much less deal, smaller deal than the Jonathan Taylor deal was. But it's still baffling a little bit to me. And then coincidentally, Anthony Richardson goes down yet again this past weekend. And obviously, I guess it helps you feel a little bit more solidified about the Colts with Anthony Richardson out, having Jonathan Taylor back. And Spence, I know you talked to me about this a few days ago when we were just talking sports in general away from the podcast. Who do you think this is a bigger deal for? Is this a bigger deal, good or bad, for Jonathan Taylor giving in and finally signing, or for the Colts saying, hey, you know what, let's pay this guy big time bucks, even though we've made some interesting comments publicly about him?
Yeah, it's a bad deal for the Colts. I'd say a good deal for Jonathan Taylor, because Jonathan Taylor probably looked at the running back market, and if you hold out for a season, the last guy to do that was Le'Veon Bell, and that did not work out for the guy one bit. He obviously got a good contract with New York and the Jets, but again, he was terrible. He didn't get a contract after that, and I'm pretty sure he got released before his contract even ended. So if you're to sit out for all 16 games this season or 17 games this season now, I think it would have been a bad decision for Jonathan Taylor. So for Jonathan Taylor to come back, have a new contract after his 4-week hiatus on the PUP list and get that big contract, I think is a good thing for him. But for the Colts organization, just not a good idea for them. And I don't think it's going to work out for them well in terms of allocating resources for next season, because they're going to need to get a couple more receivers on that team. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor's a good running back, and I hope it works out for the Colts organization. But still, a lot of money on a running back, and the running back position is something that's not few and far between in the NFL.
Yeah, no, they are tough to come by, and it's really one of those positions in which you got to get lucky in the draft without really reaching for a tailback in the first rounds. One guy I look at that's really been a disappointment to me is Najee Harris with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you look at their blunder of an offense there in Pittsburgh. This might be Mike Tomlin's first year going under 500, I think, ever. So Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, has not done a great job there. Obviously, Kenny Pickett a little bit banged up, and he hasn't looked good throughout the first couple of weeks either. He had a big play to George Pickens to win the game over the weekend, but still, that doesn't mean that you're a good team by any means or a good offense as well. And I'm a little bit shocked that Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, was not fired this week, considering they do have a bye week. They could make a change, promote somebody on the staff to be that offensive coordinator. So a bit shocking there. But when we come to coordinators and coaches around the NFL, earlier this season, Denver Broncos first-year head coach Sean Payton made comments about the former head coach that was there in Denver, of course, that being Nathaniel Hackett. And he made comments regarding Nathaniel Hackett's job as a head coach there with the Broncos, saying it was one of the worst head coaching jobs in all of the NFL, I believe ever, was his statement. And then this weekend, we witnessed the Broncos, led by Sean Payton, the head coach, host the New York Jets with Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator there, for the Jets, go at it head-to-head, and the Jets pulled away 31-21 on the road in Denver. Obviously, Sean Payton, we know him very well from growing up as Buccaneer fans and what kind of guy he is. And, of course, Bountygate, too, with the Saints and, hurting players and that whole situation that he's had. He's not got a great reputation by any means in the National Football League. Yes, he's a good head coach, but I don't know about right now. I don't know how much his guys are buying into him, and I bet he's scratching his head thinking, why did I come out of retirement to sign with this Denver Broncos team? And you look around, and it's not pretty whatsoever. The offense is doing better than what we give credit for, but a lot of these games, they're already out of the games, and Russell Wilson is practically stat padding.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to the Canada thing real quick. I mean, as a Buccaneer fan, we waited all last season, and the Bucs had a bye week in like week 7, and it was a good chance to fire Byron Leftwich, who's not even in the NFL anymore. The Bucs didn't do that. So I think the Canada situation is a lot like that. Of course, Canada's a little bit of a worse offensive coordinator than Byron Leftwich is, which is hard to say, but it is true. Obviously, you could tell he's not excited from his quarterback throwing a game-winning touchdown, checking out of the play that he was in. Told Pickens to go on a go route. It ended up working. They get a game-winning touchdown, and they won. He showed no excitement. But going to the Sean Payton thing, they are 1-4 so far this season. Of course, they had a 1-point loss in week 1 to the Raiders, 16-17, a 2-point loss to the Commanders in week number 2, and then that 50-point loss to the Dolphins, and then they beat the Bears and they lost to the Jets. So obviously they're 1-4. It feels like the margins of these games is a lot higher than what it is whenever the game ends, and that's, like you said, coming from Russell Wilson and the offense finally clicking usually in the fourth quarter of a game whenever they're down. So these games look a little bit closer than they are, aside from that Dolphins game, which was 70-20, an absolute blowout. And that's a travesty if you're a head coach in the NFL, because that means, hey, you're not doing a good job with this team. If your team gives up 70 points in the NFL, you've got one of the worst defenses of all time. And to see the Denver Broncos defense go from what it was last year, one of the top 5 groups in the NFL, to what it is this year, I think it's like a bottom 5 or bottom 10 in the league, I think is a big thing to look at if you're the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton as your head coach, because he's a guy that likes to talk a lot of crap, but can he actually walk the walk without Drew Brees? So far, 1-4 without him, and does not look good for the Denver Broncos, especially with the contract they gave him. They gave a first-round pick to the New Orleans Saints to get his rights, and he wasn't even the Saints head coach last season. So the Saints get out of a bad situation as well, because it looks like, hey, this guy wouldn't be good if we were to get rid of Drew Brees like they had. And we'll see how this works out for the Denver Broncos down the stretch. Of course, you've got to get them at least this year, and you hope that they have a little bit of improvement as the year ends, and then into next season they hope to have something. But me as a Sean Payton guy, I do not like Sean Payton whatsoever. Not a fan of him, never have been, never will be. So I kind of want to see him in the same situation that he's in, because obviously you've seen the interviews, you've seen some on Twitter. The dude's obviously, excuse my language, a douchebag, and you can see that in every single interview that this guy does. So if you're a fan of Sean Payton, like if you're the Broncos, even as a Broncos fan, I think you can realize that this guy is not a great coach at the moment. Not a good guy, most definitely. He's been a part of the biggest scandal in NFL history with Bountygate. Got back in the league because his quarterback was Drew Brees, and now here he is, 1-4 at the Denver Broncos, talking a lot of crap about Nathaniel Hackett's situation last year, the worst coaching performance of all time. Ends up getting 70 points dropped on his head the week before, and then lose to the New York Jets the next week at home. You're the home team. You lose to the New York Jets and Zach Wilson. So a lot of big issues for Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos organization, and it also stems up to their quarterback, Russell Wilson.
Yeah, speaking of Sean Payton and quarterback situations, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming off of their bye week this week. They played against the Saints, Sean Payton's former team, in New Orleans just 2 weekends ago, and they won 26-9 on the road, which was a big win there for the Buccaneers. NFC South victory over a division rival. But right now, the Bucs prep for the Detroit Lions. This game originally scheduled for this Sunday at 1 o'clock. However, it was flexed to 4:25 kickoff time, as we've got Baker Mayfield taking on Jared Goff, which I never thought that I'd say this, 2-3 years ago, after seeing how Baker's career started and Jared Goff's career started, that this would be somewhat of a primetime matchup here in Tampa Bay on Sunday. But it most definitely is. This is a big game here for both teams, really, as the Lions, they look to be a very solidified team, a team that's still trying to iron out a few things. But the Buccaneers, they're obviously trying to figure out the offensive line a bit more and establish a rushing attack. But their record says 3-1. The Lions 4-1. They're a good 4-1 team. But are the Buccaneers a good 3-1 team, or is this simply a product of the teams that they've played?
I think they're a good 3-1 team. I think the Saints are a little bit better than what people think. I mean, obviously, it's a bad offensive performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, but the Buccaneers defense is really good. Obviously, they haven't beat great teams. They beat the Vikings. They beat the Bears. They've now beat the Saints, and you're going to see who they are against the Detroit Lions. Honestly, I don't believe that they're going to defeat the Detroit Lions on Sunday, but obviously, I don't think it'd be a big deal if they were to. I don't think we could be too shocked if they're to defeat the Detroit Lions. I think it's going to be a very close game, and I think as long as the Buccaneers are within 7 of Detroit, I think they're a legit football team and are going to have a pretty good season with Baker Mayfield at the helm. But then again, I mean, Bucs defense is so good, and I don't know if Jared Goff has gone up as good of a defense as the Buccaneers have. Carlton Davis is going to be healthy. Kalijah Kancey is going to get his first start of his career in the NFL. So it's going to be a ferocious pass rush versus Jared Goff, but Jared Goff has revitalized his career with the Lions. And that's not to say that he was bad with the Rams, but obviously they didn't believe he could take him to the next level. Matthew Stafford did in his first year. He's still doing it pretty well this year as well with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. But again, this is America's game of the week this week, and I think you're finally going to see, to all the Tampa Bay Buccaneer doubters, exactly who this team is. And I think it's going to be big if they can move on to 4-1, because they'd be a top 3 NFC team that would knock off the Lions. I think you're in the top 3. You're with at least the 49ers. Can't think of who would be second, but the Bucs would be number 3 in the entire NFC, which would be very impressive for a Baker Mayfield-led team in 2023.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Again, I shared on Twitter yesterday at the Chris Mathis, and of course you can follow Spence at L Savage Spence on Twitter as well. But I shared a video of Tom Brady 2 years ago yesterday dicing up the Dolphins defense, and I thought, man, how fun was that to watch, to see Tom Brady right here in Tampa Bay. But at the same time, you look at the Bucs, they're 3-1. So maybe I was blinded by the fact it was Tom Brady and the big numbers. The Bucs still winning games here this season. Now, if they win on Sunday against the Detroit Lions, I think they put the rest of the NFL on watch, on notice, and I think that they're taken as, I'm not going to say a Super Bowl contender by any means, but I think that they're realistically, as you mentioned, a top 3 NFC team until proven otherwise. And the schedule will get more difficult as the year goes on, so that's something to look out for too. But as we approach this upcoming week in the NFL, I believe it's is that week 7 already?
Week 6.
Week 6 in the NFL, and we're going to start off with Thursday Night Football as Sean Payton's Denver Broncos play at the Kansas City Chiefs. In this matchup on Thursday Night Football, the Chiefs, a 10.5-point home favorite over the Broncos.
Chiefs cover this game.
Chiefs cover and a victory?
Yep.
Have to be, yeah. I guess that's the only way it would work out. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs as well. I think Russell Wilson still has a good game. I'm not really sold on the Chiefs defense quite yet. However, I know that they are getting better week by week with Chris Jones back out there for the team. So I'm going to say the Chiefs cover as well. Moving on to Sunday's matchups, we will save, let's see, that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Moving on, we've got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. the visiting Ravens, a 4-point favorite as they look to improve to 4-2 on the year.
Yeah, that's a slugfest, but I'm going to take the Ravens in that game as a bounce-back game for their receiving core. At 8 drops on Sunday in that loss to the Steelers. So give me the Ravens. I think they're going to win by more than 4.5.
I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans. It sounds crazy coming off of a touchdown loss to the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm not necessarily saying that I believe the Titans are a better team in the long haul than the Ravens, but I think the Titans win this game at home there in Nashville on Sunday. The Atlanta Falcons will host the Washington Commanders. Desmond Ridder still at the helm. Heineke on the bench, former Commanders quarterback. The Falcons just 2.5-point home favorites.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Atlanta in this game. So far in his career, Desmond Ridder's undefeated at home. If it were to be Taylor Heineke in this game, I think the Commanders would maybe have a little bit more of a shot because he's a little bit of a more risk taker than we see so far out of Desmond Ridder. I'm not a fan of Ridder, but good game last week, something to build on for them. So I'm going to take Atlanta in this game as well. And the NFC South, record-wise, is going to look really good after this week.
Yeah, I'm going to take Atlanta as well. I'm going to pick the Commanders against the spread, though. The 49ers play at Cleveland against the Browns. The 49ers just 6-point road favorites. I know they're on the road, but still 6 points against Cleveland, a team that's still trying to figure things out on offense.
Yeah, people are thinking, hey, Brock Purdy may not be a great quarterback in the NFL. This is a game to watch because the Browns' defense is really good, but they do not have an offense. And apparently, the starter of this game could be P.J. Walker if the quarterback, Deshaun Watson, can't go this week. They're not going to start DTR, whatever his name is, this week. He had a terrible first performance.
3 interceptions.
Yeah, did not look good whatsoever. So I'm going to take the 49ers in this game by over 6 points. I don't know what that spread is about.
Vegas knows something, but again, I'm not too worried. I'm going to think that the 49ers win this game and win by at least 7 points, a touchdown in the extra point. The Saints take on the Houston Texans, and Houston, the visiting Saints, coming off a huge win over Bill Belichick's New England Patriots, and the Saints are visitors, 1.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Saints in this game. I think we're going to see Stroud throw his first interception, who has looked really good this season, but I don't think the Texans are, of course, the team ready to compete yet. The Saints defense is really good unless they're playing their kryptonite Baker Mayfield. So in this game, I'll take the Saints.
All right, continuing here with my pick, I'm going to take the Saints as well. I think it's a close game. I will say the Saints win by at least a field goal on the road against Houston. The Carolina Panthers travel to the Sunshine State, against the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins 13.5-point favorites over the Panthers.
Yeah, this one could be the blowout of the week. The Carolina Panthers don't look good. Maybe they'll get something going this week, but what I've seen out of Frank Reich and the rest of the organization is not good. Bryce Young hasn't looked good either, so give me the Dolphins. And I'm going to go with the spread as well there. Give them 14 points.
Yeah, 13.5. I'm going over the spread as well. I'm going to go with the Dolphins. Easy, clean sweep in this game. The Seattle Seahawks travel to Cincy to take on the Bengals. The Bengals 2.5-point favorites over Geno Smith and Pete Carroll.
Yeah, this is a good game. I think it's going to come down to whoever the home team is. It's the Bengals. So I'm going to take Cincinnati in this game by 3 points.
I think Cincinnati's offense looked better. I think that Joe Burrow did find Jamar Chase quite a few times last week, setting franchise records. However, I know you can't do that game in and game out. And ultimately, you have too many weapons on offense just to target Jamar like that. So don't try to feed Jamar unless he was open. He happened to be open last week. Give me the Bengals at home. The Indianapolis Colts will travel to Jacksonville to take on the Jags. The Jags 4-point home favorites.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Jags in this game as well. I like Gardner Minshew as the Colts quarterback right now, but the Jaguars are the better team overall. Got a better quarterback. Lawrence has looked good. Got a huge victory over Buffalo last week, so I think they're going to be riding high and ready to defeat the Colts this week.
Minnesota Vikings, I'm going to go with the same thing there. Gardner Minshew, I think, is going to have a decent game, but I think that the Jags are just too strong for the Colts. The Minnesota Vikings travel to Chicago to take on the Bears, the visiting Vikings. Even without Jamar Chase, or I should say Justin Jefferson, 2.5-point road favorites.
I'm going to take the Bears. The Bears have looked good. The Vikings may be tanking. We may see Kirk Cousins be a quarterback somewhere else this season that quickly.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think they should to save this guy's career. Give him a shot. You know, we saw in the quarterback series on Netflix, he had a spot in his closet to hold up the Lombardi trophy. He's not going to do that anytime soon there in Minnesota. Trade him away. I'm going to go with the Bears in this game too. Now, the New England Patriots travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. The Raiders, 3-point home favorites. I'm going to cut you off here. I think the Patriots win on the road. Sounds crazy. I'm going Pats on the road.
Give me the Raiders. Raiders by over 3 in this game. Big victory for the
Los Angeles Rams host the Arizona Cardinals, a team that has competed pretty well. They did just lose James Conner, though, for at least 4 weeks. The Rams, 7-point home favorites.
Rams by 7.
Rams by 7 there. I'm going to go with the Rams victory. I don't know if it's by 7, though. So I think the Cardinals with the spread, the Rams win the football game. The Jets host the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, a touchdown and extra point favorite, 7-point favorites on the road against the Jets.
Eagles with the spread as well.
Yeah, I think the Eagles still trying to piece together their best game. We've seen the best from the 49ers so far. I don't think we've seen the best out of the Eagles yet, and they're still winning these football games with these. The Buffalo Bills host the New York Giants Sunday Night Football. The Bills 14-point favorites at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bills in this game. I don't think the Giants get beat that badly. They've got to have something for them going this season, how much they paid Daniel Jones. So Buffalo wins this one, but not by 14 points.
I'm going to say Buffalo wins, and I do think they win by 14 points. I think that Buffalo tries to put together and actually does exceed another good offensive performance like we saw against the Dolphins a few weeks ago. I think they get it done. Now, the Detroit Lions travel to Tampa Bay right here in my backyard as they'll take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, Spence, trying to prove to the world that they're a legitimate team in the NFC. 3-point home dogs against the Lions.
Yeah, I think what I forgot earlier whenever I said the Lions are going to win this game is the Buccaneers are busting out the creamsicles this Sunday, and I think the Bucs are going to get a victory against the Detroit Lions and prove that they're one of the best teams in the NFC, moving on to 4-1 and still leading the NFC South.
All right, moving on here to I got to make my pick there with the Buccaneers. I'm going to think the Lions in a close game. I think the Bucs have a fair shot. I'm not surprised if Tampa Bay won this game, but if I were a betting man, I would bet money on the Lions winning. Now, I will say it'll be closer than 3 points, so I'll go with the Buccaneers with the spread, but the Lions win this game here in Tampa. The Dallas Cowboys take on the LA Chargers Monday Night Football. The visiting Cowboys 2.5-point favorites over Justin Herbert and crew.
Yeah, Cowboys in this game. Justin Herbert and the Chargers still really don't have anything going for them with Brandon Staley at head coach. Cowboys with a good get-back game. Big victory for them. They need it.
All right, guys, I'm going to take the visiting Cowboys as well. Dak Prescott was somehow shocked and startled at how well the 49ers beat them the other night. I don't know if you could be shocked by that. I think you could be disappointed, but not shocked. I'm going to go with the visiting Cowboys to win and cover. And that is it for our NFL Pick'em right here on TCM Pod. We appreciate you guys for following along at TCM_pod on Twitter, right here on YouTube. Hit subscribe. Leave a comment on what picks we're right with, what picks we're wrong with, what your thoughts are on Jonathan Taylor. And follow Spencer on Twitter at LSavageSpencer, myself at the Chris Mathis. We do appreciate it. We'll be back next week.